Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. I am your host, as always, Chad Porter. Joining me is the glorious one himself, Marcus Green. Marcus, how are you?
Good man. We starting off. Don't get to talk about TNA probably as often as we like. We usually save it for some bulk conversations, and kind of opposite of how they kicked off last year with some shaky news. They started off the year with a definite bang this year.
Well, and we're going to talk about it because the more we kind of see stories coming out, the more it becomes pretty evident that while I don't want to say Scott Demore was an issue, I do see how people could have an issue with him, I guess, because he made a lot of promises to get people
Yeah,
signed, and it kind of bit him in the ass.
yeah, but I mean, I'm not saying this was all everything to do with it, but that also explains the reason why a lot of people was kind of like attached to him in that way because he was probably giving guarantees where you may have not necessarily should have, which may explain to some of your earlier criticisms a lot of the booking decisions we saw, which you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna get to one major one that shouldn't have happened and may have come back to bit them in the ass in terms of a title. But yeah, man, them it's crazy because we used to talk about all the time how in the regimes of old it's like okay, WWE talent, as soon as you sign, you get a title shot.
And that's kind of what ended up happening.
Yeah.
So the situation at hand, as I bring it over, if you're unfamiliar, is that PCO kind of went mental at GCW show, and apparently that GCW show is not well received, even though the main event or the semi-main had Richard Holiday, who I adore. Let me see what the current rating is. But at some point in the night, GCO, Jesus,
Might be his new
PCO,
name after this. Yeah.
right? Jesus, man, you should see what I'm googling right now because it's just a conglomeration of a mess. I meant to type in GCW Hammerstein, and I typed in Hammerstone. So yeah, it's a weird day. So currently on Cage Match, GCW versus the world. Excuse me, the People versus GCW from Hammerstein Ballroom is pulling in a 2.41 out of 10. One of the worst shows I've ever seen. Real briefly, some of the negative highlights. Um, we had Alley Catch break her leg in a just grueling and brutal and ugly match. They decided that they were going to put the guardrails like maybe 4 feet from the ring, if that, despite them having plenty of space to push it back further. And then they're like, yeah, you know what we should do? Just let people jump onto people, despite the short distance. And I was like, oh, that's going to end badly. And it did. She broke her leg, fractured it. Maybe not fracture. Because I think a fracture only when it's poking through the skin. It was
Mhm.
broke though.
Uh,
Yeah, there's no denying it. Um, that was awful. PCO then early in the night though decided to destroy the Digital Media Championship or the DMC with a sledgehammer, and then he went on a TNA rant criticizing the company. They cut away from it, which I thought was hilarious. Then they came back though. PCO did on Twitter and basically aired his grievances. Someone on Twitter said that they think PCO is owed money, though I've seen no one corroborating that. So I think that was just a misinterpretation of PCO's grievances. Because PCO has indicated that he is owed a lot by TNA, but he went on to clarify that he was owed a main event spot in 2024. I think Rebellion was the show, and he was owed a world title win, which is why he re-signed with TNA in the first place in 2024. That's why Demore was able to get him for one more year. And when he didn't get it, he felt like he was betrayed. He tried to cite like, "Oh yeah, I'm the reason why we sold out in Montreal," and that's clearly not true. And there's a lot of animosity now with the PCO to the point where he destroyed the belt. We're being told, not we, but it's being told to the internets that the belt was a prop, a replica. Maybe they TNA gifts titles to talents when they win a belt, so maybe it was a gifted title because we see that in other promotions. But regardless, it was an ugly scene. But PCO's tirade on Twitter after the fact really kind of painted him in a pretty negative light because the things he was complaining about aren't things to complain about. Yeah, he was owed. Scott D'Amore promised him a world title win. Scott D'Amore got fired. And truthfully, while I thought PCO was a great gimmick, I never saw him as a good worker. He's pushing 60. His matches are fine, if that. It's not like you lost Speedball or Alexander or Jordan Grace. So like I didn't understand why D'Amore was so high on him in the first place. I wasn't a big fan of him being brought in the first place. He's not a
Same.
yeah, he's a lumbering dude, which is fine if you're just trying to be a gimmick, but to think that you're a world this is an industry. This is a business.
Think it's because he don't mind doing all the dumb stuff, even at his age.
Well, I think that's why they brought him in, and I think that's why he had value to some extent. But I think when you ask yourself sincerely, like, should this dude be the top of your card? The answer is obviously no. He can't work that well. There are better options to have as a world champion. There are better matches to have. I don't know why they thought that this dude would be um, worth the money, let alone why he pretty much went off and ruined his reputation with some kind of nonsense.
Yeah, I understand a world title shot potentially, even though that necessarily, certain things you just can't necessarily promise when the card is quite literally subject to change, is the
Hmm.
kind of the golden rule. But a title run, now that's no, that's now you dive into the unnecessarily deep end of the pool. Like now, nobody needed to see that at all. You might as well just like at that point just keep it on Moose, please.
And obviously that's what they did because they wouldn't go into Slammiversary with PCO as champion. And I believe that was the idea was he would headline Slammiversary in Montreal as champion. But the one thing I do think is worth pointing out that they did give him the DMC title, like they did, and I'm sure that was done because they wanted to do something for him, but also they wanted to try to milk the Montreal of it all because he is a Montreal Canadian. But the thing is, his 3 year run in Impact or TNA, I don't think gave you the moment you thought it did, and going in and winning the DMC and the Canadian International at Slammiversary, I thought was more of a moment than his character was worth. But they still gave it to him, so I don't know. We'll see what happens next with PCO. He won a pre-show battle royal for GCW. Maybe he'll be sticking around there. He's also made some pretty wild claims, like I forget what show it was, but one of the first shows in AEW history, they had offered Kenny Omega versus PCO, according to PCO. Excuse me. And when I heard that, I just rolled my eyes because why?
I,
Why would
I,
anyone book that match?
does he think he's like the offspring of like Frankenstein? Get like what is like I get believing in yourself and your own ability, but you got to know there's tiers and levels to this, and you are kind of like an attraction type of deal at this point. Like I get it. Like wasn't he World Ring of Honor World Champion
Yeah.
at one point? But they've had like a roller coaster over the last however many years. So I mean, they basically gave Daniels a world title run as it felt like a lifetime achievement award.
Yeah, they gave
Uh,
Daniels a
in a
world
regard.
title one. They gave the belt to Rush and Bandito. They gave it to
Yeah,
PCO. Now, granted, Bandito's fantastic. Rush is solid.
y-
But they weren't putting the belt on the biggest names they can get. They were just kind of doing things.
yeah,
So PCO claims that he was scheduled to face Kenny Omega on the first ever Double or Nothing in Vegas, but he claims that he signed a 3-year deal with Ring of Honor instead. So
yeah. And I'm glad you cleared up the prop thing because I'm like, you talking about they owe him money. If you busted up their property, you owe them money.
right, and that's the thing that I think was worth noting. By the by, I don't know if you heard this. Saraya, formerly Paige, is single now. Right, right. Apparently, Ronnie Radke broke up with her. Um, that's the rumor. I don't know if that's true, but I
Oh,
kind of
that's what
just
was strange.
well, I want to just point out that this woman went to AEW with so much hype, and the one thing that I want to kind of point out is that like because of her relationship with Radke, she destroyed her reputation, and I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, why
Well,
would you?
uh,
Why would you
you gonna
risk everything for him?
you gonna have to catch me up. Is he supposed to be like another Del Rio?
Yeah, the accusations against him are pretty tame compared to what Del Rio was accused of, but like he's been accused of being um, sexist, racist, transphobic, homophobic.
Her type is
If there's a
yeah,
phobic, he's
yeah.
been accused of it.
Whatever her type is, she needs to switch it up because it's not doing good for her.
I think at a certain point though we shouldn't say she needs to switch up her type. Instead, we need to say she's the problem. If you keep
Yeah,
dating these types of men, like
yeah, it's a reflection of you.
yeah,
That's true. Yeah,
you are the
yeah, that's what
company you
relationships are.
keep.
Yeah, it's relationships are a mirror, so she need to look in it and then kind of reevaluate and rehearsal. But you perfectly kind of segue coming out the PCO thing because if they were gonna give him the title just to pop a rating in his hometown, that's the exact same thing that AEW did with Saraya.
Yes, they did. They gave her the belt to Papa Rating in England. So it's gonna be interesting. Also, Britt Baker's apparently done in Ring of Honor, and I'm just like,
Yeah, but
cool.
like I wanted to read because you was like, look, man, I don't need this. This is rare. You do this, like, look, man, I don't normally just outright call people pieces of shit, but look, she's trash,
She is.
garbage.
She is.
Like
Absolutely.
it's and I'm I'm right there with like nothing about and unprofessional. Like I'm pretty sure you've seen the thing when Serena D was out there and she was like nobody cares. I'm like, oh, this is not aging well. You're looking into the camera going nobody cares. Okay. But yeah, I think look the wrestling thing is cool or whatever, but she don't do nothing. That situation that happened with Mercedes was unfortunate, most of which was on her. I would have much preferred, ironically enough, to see that match again, except with Serena D being in her place. I think she probably just need to go and do the dentist thing permanently. I mean, that's kind of a forever career because people always gonna need their teeth worked on. But I don't, whoever she thinks she is in the world of professional wrestling, or who, she was touted to be in AEW, that's not who she is. She's not a Mercedes. She's not a Willow Nightingale. She ain't a Chris Statlander. Hell, from a personality character perspective, she not even Harley Cameron. So like,
I adore her, by the way.
yeah, yeah, she's adorable. She dead, and she ain't touching somebody like a Thunder Rosa. They not even doing nothing with Deanna or Taya. Feel like, and she not even touching them. So it's like, I get it. You were the first woman signed by AEW, but as we see in the WWE, just because you're on our TV every week, that don't mean you're the guy or the woman.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Sadly, I have some concerns that if and when Britt hits free agency, she'll end up in TNA.
God, I didn't want to, because Oh
Here,
man, I didn't want that to be a thing.
so here's the thing. I think you need to have. I think it's usually like one of three things. You need to be able to wrestle. You need to be able to talk, or you need to be undeniably charismatic. Britt Baker's a terrible athlete. Can't wrestle. Britt Baker's promos are boring, and Britt Baker is unlikable. You look at Tessa Blanchard. She's unlikable. An entire
Got
state of
it.
well respected, not the entire state, but a state full of, shall we say, ethnically inclined to prefer their own,
Yeah, yeah. Called her racist.
chanted that she was a
Hmm.
racist. Now,
Yeah.
here's the thing with Tessa, though, and this is why I think you give Tessa a shot, even though, yeah, she's probably a racist.
She got everything else you mentioned.
Yeah, she's a great promo. She's an even better wrestler. And if you steer into the hate fuckery of the fandom, you might be able to get something out of it. Now, she still has to do her rounds. She has to do an apology tour. She has to show contrition, and she has to show that she's doing things to be better. It's not good
Yeah,
enough to say, "Hey, my bad." You actually have to show that it's your bad and
yeah,
show that you're making the right steps not to do that again.
yeah, yeah. It's funny coming off with the Britt Baker thing because everything you criticized her about was proven in the feud with Mercedes.
Mm-hmm. She
Oh,
sandbagged Mercedes. She made her like how do you listen? I think Mercedes Monet is not the best character. I think she needs a new character. I think that's her biggest issue is that she keeps trying to be the boss, and it's like we're done. Do something
yes,
different.
basically,
Change it up.
it's basically what Edge is doing. It's like, okay, Cope is the same stuff.
Right? Exactly. Same shit. Do something different. That's why Sting never fell at least in the eyes of his fans. Now there will always be people who are like, "Oh, he was 51." Yeah, shut up. Sting reinvented himself constantly, which made him have a long-lasting, positive career with no downside. Mercedes and Edge, Cope, whatever, need to do the same thing. Reinvent yourselves. Be different. Whatever that different is, be it. And I feel like they're stuck in their play the hits ways now. Listen, that's great for Bon Jovi in 2025. But on pro wrestling, we need new hits. If you don't have new hits, you get put to the back of the line. You get to be involved in the pre-show main event where they do the five, the 10-man tags in New Japan, where like you get you get Yuji Nagata taking on Satoshi Kojima.
Yeah,
Like that,
it's
that's where you get relegated to if you don't
exact,
update.
exact. But we're going through because I know we, also go get to it as we go down this great show and card. Where would you? Because I think looking at this card, I was coming up with like a lot of questions I wanted to ask you about concerning certain stuff. So I'm like, this in particular, you coming off of saying what you just said about Tesla. Where would you compare? And obviously, it's two completely different things, but getting on in your own way is the through line for both of them. Where would you compare this to when Hardy kind of had to come back and do his apology tour, which they basically turned into a storyline?
As far as Tessa, I don't know the best way to phrase this. I think Jeff's apology tour was done effectively,
Yeah,
but his clearance to
mm,
bypass or to clear, I
yeah,
thought was easier because what his screw ups were his own. He made
yeah,
himself look bad. He made his own image tarnished. He didn't directly affect anyone in a way that was tangible. You could sit here and say, "Well, yeah, but he cost me money because I ordered the pay per view." Yeah, but he didn't hurt anyone. Like you were going to order that pay per view. Let's be honest. If you ordered, what was it, Destination or Victory Road,
yeah,
2011, you were going to order it regardless. Whoever the main event was, you were going to order it regardless.
yeah,
So like, I'm not of the mindset like, oh yeah, Jeff Hardy needed to have an apology tour. I thought it was good that they did. I do think it helped rehab his image.
yeah,
That being said, Tessa's has been significantly less impressive than Jeff's, and she has a much higher bar that she has to clear. And I don't feel like she's either on her own or with the company, I don't think she's done a good job of trying to earn back goodwill. I think she's
Yeah,
done one interview where she's like, "The people who needed to have a conversation with me, I've had a conversation with."
yeah,
Like that's great and all, but it's still that dismissive attitude that kind of got her in trouble in the first place. So,
yeah. I think there's a significant. Like I said, we'll talk about as we get off into the show. But I think a part of it, uh, as that audience showed, a part of that redemption or narrative is just kind of permanently clapped for a lot of people.
hmm
It's just gonna be what it is, and we talked about it. Like the what you have to do at this point is lean into it because you can't bring her back as some avenging hero.
no,
And much like Charlotte, she just works thoroughly better as a heel. She got a punchable face. People going off online. There's no way I'm gonna watch, the nega chin or whatever they calling it. Shout out to the Fairly Odd Parents, but that and just some people just not gonna get over the race racist stuff because the way she got dogpiled and the people who did it is like everything they said about Tessa is the opposite of what they say about Chelsea Green, and she was
yeah,
one of them.
and
You
and,
know,
and that's kind of the part of the issue though. Like Chelsea Green is so popular right now,
yeah,
and unfortunately, this matters when we talk about narratives. But when someone who's popular and well liked, even if they're not correct, once they put something out there, that becomes the defining aspect of the person they're talking about, for better or for worse, right? And I think when
yeah,
you look at this, when you look at Chelsea Green's popularity and the fact that she's kind of beaten the drum, so to speak, on Tessa, as
yeah,
long as Chelsea Green's in good standing, it's going to be hard to argue that she's in the right or that she's redeemable. It's going to be hard to argue that because Chelsea Green is so popular, and for whatever reason, wrestling fans or people in general seem to like the idea of glomming on to the noticeable star and following in their trend. Now that eventually bites you in the ass, but it does happen. And I think that's kind of I don't
yeah,
want to say that's kind of what happened with Tessa. Tessa dug her own grave, so to speak.
yeah,
But I do think that until you can start winning over people like Chelsea Green, the influencers, the movers and shakers, I do think it's going to be a hard go to have her around full time. She has, even if it means groveling, she has to make
yeah,
right with people like Chelsea Green and hope that Chelsea Green will encourage her audience to give her a pass and to accept her apology. Because otherwise, it's not gonna go Tessa's favor on this one.
yeah. And the thing between her and Jeff, like people have always, through all his trials and tribulations, have always wanted to support and like Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Tessa had their respect back when she was red hot, and back in 2018, 19, and 20, they had respect, and she was the hottest thing smoking. And then between the racism allegations and just how she didn't do business, she lost her respect. And then you pile that on top of the racist stuff, and then the people who accused her are extremely credible. There was so much smoke it had to be fire, and then like you said, it's not like if she come out and showed a lot of uh, empathy towards the situation because at this point she probably just wants to get a lot of it behind her. But it's like you kind of up the creek without a paddle. At this point, you kind of got to work with the pieces you can. But coming off your point with comparing her to Britt Baker, she got every other intangible. She got every. You're not gonna get a bad match with the girl, as we're gonna get to. So I think that's just the part they're gonna have to focus on and kind of deal with the crowds as they go.
Yeah, I'm hoping she can do right and
Yeah,
you know get back in the good graces. But there's gonna be a lot that you have to do to get there. So here's hoping that she can put in the work and get there.
yeah.
With that being said, let's talk about Genesis
Genesis.
2025 because I'll tell you what, I don't think any of these matches were truly fantastic. I also don't think that any of these matches were bad. If we're going, worst is one or zero and best is five, I think you were in the 3 to 4 range all night.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know if I would
same.
say any of these are match of the year contenders. Maybe the main event,
Okay, okay,
maybe because the main event was pretty good.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
they're all
yeah,
pretty good,
yeah, yeah.
but
Shout out to the sold out crowd.
yeah, but I would say that I don't think anyone should have left that show disappointed. Also, I do want to point out that one of the things that has been happening right now on Twitter is kind of the what's the word I want to say? Not the reckoning of certain aggregate Twitter accounts that seem to have popularity for being popular and not for adding anything. Some of them are, Air Gold. If you follow us on Twitter at NerdCorp, NERDCRP, check us out. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about with the Air Gold stuff. Uh, you have people like Jonah, Gareth, just vapid, soulless, identityless morons who steal content and say shit just to get engagement so they can get paid by Elon Roman salute Musk, right? So watching that kind of play out and knowing that some of the narrative around TNA recently has been from these aggregate accounts where they're like Joe Hendry's wash, he's just a meme wrestler, they missed the boat. Then you had people like Jonah, like Moose is gonna throw, TNA's getting rid of the X Division title, and people believed it. They
Oh my
single-handedly were proven to be unreliable narrators on Sunday from start to finish. Moose didn't retire the X Division. He brought out a new belt, which I think kind of sucked. If I'm being
yeah, it
honest.
was. Yeah,
A lot of hype for a badly made, what do they call those
yeah.
belts?
Some
Um,
specialty titles.
yeah, they have a name. I can't fucking remember what they're called. Vanity belts. That's what they are.
Yeah,
Vanity
yeah, yeah,
belts.
that it.
Is one of the worst vanity
But
belts I've ever seen.
but but if it lines up with the same guy that brought back the big TNA belt, so I don't know how people. And again, you know what that is? You don't watch.
Yeah, and
You
they don't.
watch to pick stuff apart because TNA always has to be the bad guy. WWE is the king. You say AEW is the king, and TNA just has to be the bad guy all the time.
One of the things I hate right now is this need for these conversationalist influencers dragging TNA into an argument about WWE and AEW. Listen, I don't want WWE to go out of business. I just think they suck. I think their product is unwatchable garbage. I don't want AEW to go out of business. I just think that they have the best roster in the world and a booker who doesn't know how to book that. I don't want TNA to be involved in that narrative. TNA is doing their own thing. They are over here pulling in 4 to 5 thousand people a show. They're doing their thing. They are where they need to be. They don't need to be involved in this stupid little feud that doesn't mean anything and will only serve to hinder the wrestling landscape. Don't put TNA in your mouth. Just don't. Just don't. Just either watch them or don't. But don't bring them into the stupid ass debate. That being said, a lot of surprises were promised. I would say that they disappointed greatly with that. Um, WWE and TNA formally announced a partnership. That's not news at this point. But the one thing that kind of fucking staggers me, AJ Styles will come back. John Cena will probably have a match with Joe Hendry. They're going to put TNA wrestlers in the Royal Rumble. They're not going to. They may put some of the women in the Women's Royal Rumble, but that's because their roster sucks
Yeah, they
and they
need to
need
fill it.
help.
Yeah, and they don't. They want to bring people in who can actually go and not do vanity selections like Tori Wilson and Stacy Keibler. Oh God, it's Caitlyn.
You're not wrong. When you look at what NXT and TNA has done, TNA gets Cora Jade, and you know, she loses or wins or who the fuck cares because it's Cora Jade. No one cares.
Yeah.
But then you have
Compensation.
Hammerstone eating losses to Obafemi. Now listen, Obafemi's not a bad talent. Like we clearly like the guy.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna have one of your top stars eating L's on NXT, that's a non-starter for me. You know, if you want Obafemi and Hammerstone to have a match that you build up to, you know, feud for 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks, and then you have a blow-off match either on NXT or TNA, and you want Obafemi to win, okay, I can be convinced because the business would be good for TNA by
Yeah.
working with Obafemi. To have a guy that you're building up just eat a 4 minute loss to Obafemi, no, that's fucking a mistake. And then
Yeah.
you're going to try to convince me, someone who's done this, been here, lived this, conversed, talked to people, still talk to people in this industry. You're going to tell me that AJ Styles is going to show up on TNA? How high on mushrooms are you? And should I call an ambulance? Because that is the stupidest
And
thing you've said all day.
and now so that's Monday morning quarterbacking because this is NXT TNA partnership specific.
Mm-hmm.
It's you everybody else is booking it to the main roster. AJ don't even know if he's coming back right now because of his injury.
But Marcus, AJ Styles will show up on TNA television. That's what this
Yeah,
partnership's all about.
and John Cena's gonna go to TNA as a part of his retirement tour because he he hasn't told us that everything's basically booked
Now
in
listen,
every interview said.
if John Cena does show up, and I won't say he's not because this is pro wrestling. Never say
And
never.
anything can happen. Yeah,
But if I had to put $20 down on him showing or not showing, I'd put him on him not showing. And there's a part of me that, as a fan of the company, wants him to show up. Right? That would be huge. The internet would break. At least the wrestling internet would break. As a fan of the wrestling in TNA, I don't want to see it because John Cena, and I say this with all due respect, is washed like a pair of faded jeans. That man should not have had a retirement tour. He should have been done 3 or 4 years ago. He moves so jankily in the ring. He's stiff. He used to be very fluid, even with all his muscles. He used to be very fluid. But now you watch him and there's this stiffness, and that's coming
yeah,
from the joints calcifying, from them being
yeah.
worn down. Like he doesn't move like he
He,
used to. There's no pop. There's no speed. There's
yeah,
no power like he used to. And I'm supposed to be excited that we're gonna get broke down John Cena before
he's
he ends
not.
up flying off to Krypton one more time.
He's no longer the leader of the chain gang or the C Nation. He looks like the guy that leads a neighborhood watch meeting.
He looks like the guy who leads the chain gang on the side of a highway, bald spot and all.
Yeah, yeah, and he kind of he's skinnier now. Like he's still in great shape, but he's smaller now. He's got that PTA haircut with the bald spot. It's a different thing.
The
With
comb
your
over
with your
bald spot, which is just
yeah, it's that's even worse. Didn't Corbin have that?
yeah,
No, he
but
had the wet hair comb over both
yeah,
spots, which
yeah,
was
but
worse.
he still had the comb over. You know.
Yeah, well your eye test. How far is he from what Taker was?
So Taker was washed. I'm trying to think. I would say at WrestleMania 31.
Okay, who was that against? Was
I,
that Bray? No, that's
no,
when he
Bray was
came back.
29.
Okay.
I think because 30 was Lesnar, right? That's
Oh,
where he lost the streak.
yeah, that's when he got concussed. Yeah, he probably should have stopped after that, definitely.
I want to say 32 is Roman.
Oh God, yeah, you might be right.
So like somewhere between Roman and Brock, he got washed and should have retired because I don't think he had a good match afterwards. Now everyone's like the Boneyard match was really good. It wasn't even a little. It wasn't. I think maybe you're right. I think 31 was Bray. Yeah, it was Bray. I would say he was washed at 31. Um, but I would say Cena is prob. If you were to tell me that the Undertaker is going to come back for a main event match, I would say there isn't a person in the world who can make that happen. You could put all the stem cells you want into his body, he's washed. If you told me Cena was going to headline a TNA show against Joe Hendry, I would say that's not going to be the best wrestling you'll ever see, but it's going to be a spectacle and worth checking out.
Oh yeah, and just a promo between those. Imagine Joe Hendry doing the video package about John Cena, all those years of stuff he could go into, including like how he is now, would be brilliant stuff. I think that's actually why he wants to do it because he knows that exchange would be great. But yeah, I can't see that happen. If they ever cross paths, it'll be because they let Hendry do the Rumble, which I also am not anticipating.
I think it's more likely Hendry or even someone else from TNA does the men's rumble than it is John Cena wrestles on a TNA pay per view.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
anyway, with all the big surprises, we open the show with one of the biggest surprises of all time, Asante the Adonis, and just
Look,
I don't
man.
know.
I like Ashanti, I do, but he's out of metaphor and of the four people, even when they were all on screen consistently, he was the least. Um, you know what? I'm wrong. I'm thinking about somebody else.
Who are you thinking of?
There's another individual that was in
What was it? Top Flight?
no Top Flight. That's AEW. Um,
Do I want Google to access my location? No, no, I fucking don't.
let's see, man.
Yeah, I'm doing the exact same
Or
thing.
yeah, or yeah, I'm thinking about Or Mensa. Yeah, but yeah, Ashanti the yeah, I like Ashanti the Adonis, but they was supposed to pair him and Cedric up after that whole fallout with MVP's group, and they were supposed to be on SmackDown and be a thing, but they never really got them going on there. So they put them in NXT, and then they were supposed to be a thing there, and then that just never became a thing, and then they just split them off. So again, to your point, they kind of send the scraps, but at least we didn't have to deal with the scraps getting the victory this time.
Can I just point out that I didn't realize BFAB was still on the roster?
Yeah, man, she's getting more opportunities to wrestle, but she still got a ways to go. But she has potential in the fact they put her the manager for the Street Profits. I don't know how much longer that's gonna last, but of what was the name of the group with Swerve? She's kind of the last one standing.
Yeah, hit row.
Yeah, Hit Row. Thank you. Yeah, she's kind of the last of the Mohicans with that. So
So Asante showed up and got beat up by Jake something and glorified squash. It was what it was. I wouldn't say that seeing Ashanti was worth taking a roster spot from somebody else, but hey, who am I? We also got a pretty decent opener with Frankie Kazarian versus Leon Slater. Frankie got the win, but made Slater look pretty good. So clearly they have high hopes for Slater despite the change in booking.
yeah,
Though I'm still hoping that what's his name, Mike DeVecchio, and what was the girl's name? Harley Hudson, I think. I'm still hoping that they pop up eventually. In fact, I think that'd be a nice little stable. The start though of the show is Moose versus Ace Austin. They brought in a new title for Moose. Pretty slick. Not really. Well, whatever. The the pretty slick though was actually more for the ring setup. I really liked the black mat with the gold lettering of Genesis. I thought that was a nice pop.
yeah,
Match with Austin and Moose, I thought was very good. Ace Austin
hmm
is that guy and deserves to be that guy.
yeah,
I would like to see him do some more promo work and maybe alter up his look a bit and do a character change of sorts.
hmm
I think that's necessary, but I also think that he could probably find the next step without having to dramatically alter his look. That being said, good news on the Ace Austin front because we found out today from Rob Van Dam that Chris Bay seems to be on his way to a recovery. Now, Rob Van Dam's hole is not his hole, Jesus Christ. Rob Van Dam's brain has more holes in it than Swiss cheese at this point. He smokes a lot of pot. He took a lot of chair shots. I don't know if I believe every word he said about Chris Bay because the way he said it, it sounded like Chris Bay was going to wrestle one day. And I don't know if that's realistic because they are pumping fans hard for donations and to buy the merch and to try to get, more stuff to Bay because clearly they don't expect him to be back working in the ring anytime soon. I think what you're going to see is that he could maybe have a normal-ish life. I would be flabbergasted, but also very excited if Bay ever wrestled again.
Yeah, didn't we get Sorensen coming back years ago?
Yeah, he had a brief little run for some outfit in Las Vegas. I don't think we're gonna see the same thing with Bay. I
Yeah,
hope we do. Right? Like that's
same.
this is not me. Me thumbing my nose at it. But RVD confirmed what we had already suspected was that he was paralyzed. Now, he said that he's no longer paralyzed. That people are now thinking Bay's running down the hallway. No, no. More than likely, what's happening is that he's got feeling
Minimal
back in his
move.
yeah,
Yeah,
and minimal movement, which is
yeah,
a good thing. It's not something. This is not to underplay how excited we should be. It's to clarify and to properly put
yeah,
this into context for people as to what to expect.
yeah,
He's not going to be showing up in the Royal Rumble. He's not going to be at Slammiversary. He's probably not going to be at 2026 Bound for Glory. But he's improving, which is a great thing.
yeah. He's just trying to fight to get back to normal day to day. Because when release that statement, it's like it's gonna be a long, hard journey. Those kind of usually imply, not always, because obviously you leave out, left out specifics, but that usually implies you're trying to regain or relearn to do something, so you can get back to some form of normalcy.
Yeah,
So,
he'll probably have to learn to eat with a spoon again, walk,
hmm
tie shoes. It's going to be a long road.
yeah. So, kudos to them for keeping that pressure on in terms of keeping them uplifted and doing everything that they can. Like just the wrestling community in general, not just TNA. I think Punk gave him a shout out. Like it's always cool to see the wrestling community come together like that. But yeah, like you said, they need to keep expectations level when it comes to Bay, and as for Aces, it's always gonna be personal for him. I think he could obviously use a lot of this to catapult him into something special. Obviously, Moose is gonna continue to be an obstacle. But what do you think about him potentially, you know, uh, doing a shot after shot after shot till he finally knocks off Moose, and maybe we get to Destination Next, you can kind of cash in. Because when's the last time we even saw Option C?
I don't know, but I'm not a fan of Option C, so if we never see it again, I'm not going to be upset about it.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Because I was thinking about, I'm like, well, to call your shot Gauntlet. I mean,
I
to
don't
call your shot.
know. So what I would end up doing actually, we need a new DMC, new digital media champion. I would say put the belt on Ace.
You think he want that?
I think that gives him an opportunity to. I mean, look what it did to Joe Hendry. Despite how it ended with PCO, PCO was heavily promoted while champion. I think you need to invest in belts for them to invest back in the wrestler, and I think having Ace Austin win that belt and really championing it could help him, could help the belt,
Okay.
help
Okay.
elevate
So
things.
if you take Ace out the X Division situation, do you slot Slater in that spot? Because obviously this situation with Moose it's got to be transitional.
Beating Moose is going to be a big thing for somebody. I don't know if Slater's ready yet. Just as a brand, not as a wrestler. He's very talented, But I
Yeah.
think if you're trying to build someone up to maximize the importance of beating Moose, I don't think Slater's the guy. Maybe Ace Austin's the guy in that regard. Maybe the guy isn't on the roster yet.
Mm.
I have a feeling we're going to see quote unquote surprises more so on the live show this Thursday than
Yeah.
we will or than we got on Genesis.
Yeah. And just I mean, just the concept of that. What they have done, like what they said in 8 years.
Yeah, I think so.
So that's crazy. But yeah, like you said, man, they kicked it off with a bang. Obviously, there's a classic TNA X Division match kicks off the show. Moose has been a stalwart stud for them for a long time now. We talked about him, probably one of the most underrated big men we have today. Doesn't get enough credit for being a hell of a seller too.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, good stuff. And the system, even with one champion, still continues, and Lish continues to be brilliant. So
Speaking of the system, the next match was Eddie and Brian Myers versus Steve Macklin and Eric Young. I don't know if I like Macklin and Young as a tag team, but I'm not a big. I prefer Macklin more than I prefer EY. I'm not big on either guy.
I'll take it. This is closer to a compliment as we're gonna get.
Yeah, pretty much. But like I don't know. This was a fine match. Eddie can still go despite his age. Brian Myers has always been a good tag team wrestler. Eric Young, I don't think Eric Young has ever been a good worker. He's been fine. He's always been serviceable, but I've never once seen a good Eric Young match. Like, I've never gone, Marcus, you know what match I want to rewatch? That one Eric Young match. There have been some moments I want to. He's a charismatic motherfucker, especially like in his younger days with the "Don't Fire Eric," hilarious. But I think Macklin and Eddie are the two best parts of this match, and there's a sizable difference between them. But there's an even sizable difference between Macklin and whoever the third option is too. So this match was only ever going to be as good as it was, and yeah, got Eddie on the show. That's really all I cared about.
Yeah. Do you see potential? Because obviously they put recently put Sammy together with Rhino. Who isn't Rhino finishing up or done with the company?
Yeah, they put Sammy with Rhino, and then they put Sammy with PCO.
Yeah, oh my God! And speaking of the word "wash," you've called that with Sammy for years at this point. Um.
Ever
So yeah,
since his broken leg, man, like Sammy needs to put in
yeah,
the effort to get back to where he was, and he's not. And it's noticeable. It's affected his in-ring performances. He's not where he once was.
at all. He used to be must see.
Yeah.
Now,
Now
yeah,
he's please skip.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, do you see them putting Young and Macklin in title contention for the tag titles? I mean, at this point, the Hart is accepting all comers in prime form right now. So
Yeah, and it might as well. As long as you don't put the belts on them, I say why not? They're two
yeah,
former world champions. They provide credibility in any situation. So yeah,
yeah,
they could probably do a tag team title match with the Hardys, and it can be, I think, pretty good. Spitfire took on Ash and Heather by Elegance. I'm not super excited about Heather by Elegance, only because like she came in as Heather Reckless.
yeah,
Like you had it. Like that was gonna be cool. And instead you just kind of made her a less impressive version of a pretty unimpressive character already.
yeah. And maybe that's the way for the storyline for to kind of crawl out of that and get into some single stuff that they wanted to make a thing because they don't have a deep plethora of competition in the tag ranks right now.
No,
Um, and this is probably my least favorite match of the night. A
agreed.
lot of that has to do with the challengers and not the champions. But because that I think who that was hit that sick German. Um,
Oh, Danny.
yeah, shout out to Danny. Yeah, that German was sick. But yeah, quickly though, while we're on elegance, where would you compare? Because you've always, kind of not really been high on Ash, but where would you compare her in terms of like liking it to what you was alluding to back when we was talking about Baker?
So when Ash was Dana Brooke,
Yeah,
I thought she had a certain type of charisma, and she was probably deep in her bodybuilding phase.
Yeah.
And that gave her some credibility that I think she lacks now. Now, listen, I don't blame anyone, especially bodybuilders. You know, carrying that type of muscle mass breaks your joints down. It just does. So, like, I'm not shocked that Dana Brooke decided that she didn't want to, be as hulky up as she was. But I do think as a wrestler and as a performer, she's missing out without that type of physique. She wasn't a great promo, and she wasn't overly charismatic in the first place. So like
Yeah.
that like she's like 4'11", 5'1". She's not tall, but she was as wide as she was tall and muscle, and that gave her that almost like that Rick Steiner type of build.
Yeah.
Now she kind of she had plastic surgery and she slimmed
Yeah.
down and she looks so different than what she did. Now, in a
Yeah.
sense, it kind of gave her a new persona, a new like she was almost reborn by that. But also, that's not always a good thing. In her case, maybe it was because like Dana Brooke wasn't exactly setting the world on fire as a character, but
Yeah.
also she just lost a lot of her aura. And I hate to use that
Yeah.
term because like Gen Alpha and Gen Z have abused that word like a puppy in the South, man.
Yeah. A lot of her, yeah, chutzpah, or whatever you want to call it, is kind of faded. And when she used to come out and do the cartwheel and everything, it looked real cool. And to that degree, like I said, never really somebody that was going to, wild you away in the ring. But and I think Jordan gave her the match of her career.
Hmm.
But again, that's against Jordan, who is at the top of the pyramid right now. But yeah, it's funny because during the match, and shout out to Ray Walt and Hannafin, they made a beautiful people reference. And ironically enough, that's kind of how it feels like what she is at this point.
Yeah. Though
You know,
here's what I will say about that. Um, she has no charisma compared to the beautiful
Sky
people.
and Love.
Like
Yeah,
even Velvet Sky, who was as terrible as she was in the ring, even for that, she wasn't. She wasn't good. She wasn't. She was a bad athlete, and it showed.
yeah,
Velvet Sky was super fun to watch. Big personality, drew you in. I remember when Ash by Elegance debuted, and it was like this time last year. She was in the crowd, and like the personal concierge, formerly known as Iceman, was like talking to her, and she had this really dull, vapid smile, and she just nodded, and I'm like, that is the extent of your charisma. You look like a mannequin bobblehead, and I don't think like she's the worst wrestler on the roster, man or woman, and she's the least charismatic person in wrestling right now. I have not heard one good promo. I have not seen one good segment that she's been involved in. I think she's getting opportunities because they don't have a deep roster right now in the knockouts that have the the name value to carry some of these matches. So I think she's getting a break in that regard. But I wouldn't re-sign her at
yeah.
all.
uh, Agreed. She wasn't that too far. I mean, at least Giselle had some, I guess, moments, but they not too, dissimilar in certain ways. But you're definitely right that she's getting a lot of TV. She kind of almost reminds me of what they did in the male version with the Miracle, Mike
Yeah,
Bennett.
yeah.
Yeah. So he benefited from the same thing at the time as well. So yeah, hopefully, like you said, this kind of could maybe be something for Heather Reckless, who got a nod from you when the name first came up. So maybe they'll do a thing where obviously she kind of breaks free of that whole thing and kind of starts off, but might be a while because like you said, they don't have a depth with the women in general, and certainly not with the tag scene. So they might be doing that for a while.
Hopefully not, but we'll see what happens. Luckily, Spitfire won though. We got a Frankie promo basically saying, he was gonna try to take the belt off of Nemeth or Joe Hendry tonight. That'll obviously play into some stuff later. Then we get, I think, the either the match of the night or the runner up for the match tonight, with Jordan Grace versus Tessa Blanchard. I don't know if it's the racism or her hatred of people who aren't as tough as her, but Tessa Blanchard wrestles like she has hate living in her soul, man. She's
Yeah,
violent. She snaps.
yeah,
She's just
yeah.
so impactful.
She sells. This match. I was saying it for the show. Like this match was no thrills, no frills, all kills.
Yeah.
Like, and it was great. What's so great about it is you didn't really need to do like months worth of build up. Like you basically had the woman who held up the division when Tessa fell, and then the woman like Jordan basically took the spot that Tessa was gonna have had she not fumbled her own ball, particularly if she just stayed in the women's division, and maybe she would be kind of I guess similar to Jordan Grace potentially heading to WWE, but that's not the case. And Jordan completely changed the look, her style, everything, and she's been the pillar. And so Tessa come back and be like, I'm the one who put it on the map. And Jordan's like, no, Mitch, I redefined it. You dropped the ball in every single way. And the stuff I could go into about you, I'm not going to, which I also thought was great. Like when they did the contract signing, she was like, Santino says she ain't signed a contract. If she don't show up to Genesis, it wouldn't be the first time. Like, oh, great. And then they just got in this match, and I love when they do fuse in wrestling and it's supposed to be this damn I want to kill you thing. And the minute the bell rings, ain't no damn collar and elbow top. It's I'm trying to beat the dog piss out you, and that's all this match was. And they were doing stuff that I'm like, if they not trying to kill each other, they fool me. So
They had a great match. Truly a great match. And I think the only thing I wish we could do differently was have Jordan for another year or two so that we could have had like the proper year long build up. Instead, Tessa was brought in to kind of replace Jordan Grace as the heavy worker. And like that's not the worst thing. She if anyone's as good or better than Jordan Grace in the ring in the world, and I say this knowing full well that people just hate Tessa Blanchard right now,
yeah,
but there are a few women who are as good
you
in the
go.
ring as Tessa Blanchard. Whether you like her or you don't, that is an empirical fact. She's a great athlete. She's strong as hell. She has got great footwork, great understanding of the wrestling ring. You know, I think her stepdad is Magnum TA and her father's Tully Blanchard. So like
She
there's a
she
lot there.
yeah she got that piss and vinegar that you kind of just want. Everything that I guess will turn some toxic males off in terms of potentially looking at women's matches. The complete opposite with her. Like the way the way the look she be having on her face when she don't get the pin, the way she be dejected. Like, yeah, it's like I said, outside how people feel about her personally and 100% entitled to that, people are. The girl got every other intangible. I said it, on her original run. The girl got intangibles that's kind of years ahead of her time.
Hmm.
So, yeah, but that crowd, that crowd was clearly, uh, how they had their mind made up. So,
Tessa gets the win, sends Jordan Grace off to NXT. Jordan had a great look for the night. Easily one of the best designs and aesthetics in wrestling. Alexander and Santana had a hell of an I Quit match. Santana got the win. Alexander quit. Great match. Santana really is
that guy.
yeah, he's impressive. Now I'm not surprised. I pissed off Ortiz in like 2017 when I'm like Santana's a main eventer, and Ortiz is like, so am I, and I'm like, you're not,
Nah,
you're not.
that's Chad's like, tell me you're the Janetti without telling me you're the.
Yeah, if you gotta say you're a headliner, you're not a headliner, bro. But I saw it. I saw it in Santana. He had the look, he had the style, he had the movement. I think he's. I don't want to say he's lost his step. He's changed his style. Like he was like maybe 200 pounds back then. He's clearly like 230 now. Like
Yeah,
he's put on a
picked
lot of
up,
muscle.
picked up ass. Yeah, changed his style, called himself the nasty of, and he moves like that. Like when he perfectly nails that spin the block,
Mm-hmm.
sick.
It is. That being said, I do think some of his recent size increase might be at the hair.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a lot of weight. But yeah, I mean, he got all the intangibles. They've been booking him perfectly. They're coming through the audience to giving them the time with the promos, all the video packages and whatever. He's killing that. They get certainly have given him the competition to prove himself. Alexander, did the Lord's work putting him over. Like it's hard with everything that we watched, and certainly with our quit matches to make it interesting. Just the way that Santana was like, "Hey, you quit? Get the f out of my face!" And then pulling out the slapjack, which is a nod to the old LAX days. So that was it was sick.
Let me ask you, where do you see Alexander ending up? Because he's testing free agency now.
Potentially AEW. I don't. I could also see WWE, but I'm like I don't know because it's to your point, and we talked about this when it came to guys like him and Bailey, the personality thing. Like I
Mm-hmm.
actually liked this latest work that he was doing as a heel and everything with the Armory, but it was kind of unfortunate towards him kind of exiting the company. But I kind of like what he was doing in that regard. But I don't know, it's gonna be like an NXT thing or a main roster when he goes to WWE because it's kind of easy to get lost in the shuffle. And with the Rumble on the horizon, Mania season revving up, a lot of people are gonna be coming back. It's easy to get. I mean, they just get Nakamura back in something relevant, uh, in shape for stuff. So I don't know, but I could probably see AEW because at least there they focus more on the in ring stuff as opposed to the personalities. So maybe that, or maybe he pop up in your old hood in MLW. You know,
No, I don't think he's going to go to MLW. I think he'll re-sign with TNA. But
you think he'll
maybe
resign?
as opposed to going to MLW, I can't imagine he burned any bridges in TNA. TNA is much bigger than MLW right now.
Yeah, I definitely don't expect him to burn no bridges, but I just think he's kind of. I don't know. I think between the way the company kind of just picked his option up, and then obviously they had the chance to do that without necessarily giving him wiggle room there. But between that and I think he still kind of didn't necessarily like how this whole Scott situation went down.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of more determined to kind of get free just to see what he can do outside of it. But to your point, maybe MLW is kind of further off from there, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe who knows? And like you said, anything can happen. Maybe he pops up in the men's rumble. We don't know, but I think he's kind of determined to really see if he got it to pull it somewhere else. And so a lot of people have been like, "What if he gets back with Ethan Page and does the North?" I'm like, "Did God no?"
Yeah, the North were great. Alexander and Page aren't friends anymore. I don't think they want to
Yeah,
work together at all. Maybe they'll do business on opposite sides. Sure, sure, sure. But yeah, the North will probably very likely never happen. I think Alexander ends up in AEW, personally.
yeah,
The Hardys took on the Rascals in a banger. Matt and Jeff may not be what they once were, but here's the thing with them as high flyers. They were never really good.
Jeff just jumped off everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jeff just jumped off everything, and Matt always walked like he had something in a sensitive area, right?
Oh,
So like them being where they are now is a lot closer to their prime than I think people will want to admit out loud. They're daredevils. I don't know if I'd
yeah,
say they're athletes.
yeah. I mean, look, you there was I mean, you did an exchange on Twitter, but somebody was really big up and shout out to because he's a legend. Big up in Mysterio with the stem cells and saying he's kind of still the goat, and,
He
and you
said
like,
that
Jazz,
Mysterio has not lost a step. And I responded by saying that Rey Mysterio has lost more steps than the step difference
uh,
between step up one and step up two when they got rid of Channing
uh,
Tatum.
Jazz was like, you know how many steps he lost? Cue the happy feet dance.
Do you want to know how many steps he lost? The Great Wall of China is now a plank.
uh,
It is now a 3-step staircase. Now listen, Rey Mysterio with 1,000 less steps than where he was in say '97, where I think people agree was his peak year. Um, Still better than 60% of the roster. Not say
Yeah,
Ray is not washed. Ray is not what he once was,
yeah,
but Ray is not washed. That being said,
yeah,
Rey Mysterio is so far from his prime. I think to see his prime from where we are, you'd need to be in space because
yeah. But
the horizon will come too fast.
yeah, you living in a world where we got Ray Phoenix and goddamn Dragon Lee, who they really need to do more with. And they kind of are those next guys. But going back to the Hardys, I mean, they really are giving their greatest hits. And doing it to peak perfection. That was a couple years ago where I don't know if either one of them would have been in shape to do half of the stuff that they famous for, and they pulled them all out in this match. Flawless execution, like that. It's not the twist of hate, but it's the plot twist they do.
Mm-hmm.
What it did, but bounce off the twist of fate and then catch him with the cutter.
Yeah.
And Jeff, Jeff definitely has to hit the swanton now, like full on, or he's like, my back got one more bump with it. But yeah, they killed it. The Rascals, had basically had their dream match. I would imagine, Trey Miguel was grinning from ear to ear like a Chester cat on the inside, taking a swanton from a childhood hero. I didn't really expect the Hardys to lose because it feels like they really having a great run. So, I don't know who they're gonna drop it to, but uh, they really are one of the best things that are going on in 2024 and going to 25. So it was a great match.
Really was, especially considering the ages of Matt and Jeff. And I think Trey and Wentz looked fantastic. So
Yeah,
that takes us to the main event. Well, actually, we found out that Fraxium, one of the worst
yeah.
tag names in the history of wrestling.
Oh, we have one month before that. Can't leave out undead girl,
Did I skip that match?
the
No,
ladies for the
no. The ladies is the semi-main. We're coming up to that.
gotcha.
Fraxium will take on the Rascals on the live edition of Impact this Thursday, so tune in for that. Though, while I do like A Kid or Axiom and the whole idea, eh, Fraxium's fine.
Yeah,
They may have been really good in 2006, but like this era of wrestling requires personality. Everyone's good in the ring. Sorry, I had a burp. Clockwork Orange House of Fun match, Knockouts title. Rosemary versus Jordan. Not oh, Jesus, that's a Freudian slip. Rosemary versus Masha Slamovich. Masha's going to be doing the hits right now, and doing the Clockwork Orange House of Fun match was great. Seeing Raven and Rosemary do their thing again was fantastic. I will say one of the things that was clearly missing. If you ever saw the original Ravens Clockwork Orange House of Fun match, there's a fourth of a cage. It's
mm,
part of the gimmick. Apparently,
mm,
TNA doesn't have a cage anymore, so they had
yeah, that,
to find
yeah,
a stand-in.
yeah. I think for whatever reason, I mean, I think they struggled enough getting that stuff up and then getting obviously tearing it down. Um, Felt like they was kind of frantic for certain stuff at certain times. But yeah, I mean, they came out to deliver. I didn't. It's crazy how time flies. It tracks though with how long it feels like. It didn't feel like it's been 7 years since Rosemary had the knockouts out.
It doesn't, but that's also because she's been around the Knockouts tag title so much.
Yeah,
So I get that. Did Penta really beat up Pete Dunne in the squash match?
I don't know. I have to go back and look. I actually haven't. I haven't watched Raw.
I'll say
Uh,
this: the Raw canvas looks so much better without that stupid Prime bottle.
yeah, I mean, I think most things would.
Yeah,
I think the Prime bottle would look better without the Prime alcohol. But yeah, they Printer's the new hotness.
yeah.
He's the new hotness. You know. Uh, but yeah, the women delivered. Role. It's crazy because I didn't. You wasn't even paying attention to it if you wasn't caught up with all the history, but essentially Marsha has kind of taken on what Rosemary used to be. When she was killing it, and back in, they even brought up on commentary like when Rosemary was running things, when it was Red versus Blue, her and Mia Yim, and Rosemary kind of took on like being the female abyss, and then now we got Marsha basically being the hardcore queen of it all. And yeah, I'm glad she got a title shot. I'm glad she got back in title contention in a singles capacity. Um, but I was thinking about this. I want to ask you: do you ever see her ever getting it again before she, retires?
Yes, but with everything, it has to be the right angle, has to be the right situation, the right circumstances. But yeah,
Yeah.
I could easily see that. Um, that takes us to the main event. I giggle. They use like a little like fence. That's
Yeah.
hilarious. That's great. Main event. Kazarian, not Kazarian. Hendry versus
Nick Nemeth.
Nemeth for the world title. Real good match.
Mhm.
Enjoyed the hell out of it. Obviously, Joe Hendry won. Big pop. We got some interesting character developments, right? Um, we saw who let me remember. Frank Kazarian came out with the Call Your Shot Gauntlet title, the trophy. Jibble, JBL, John Bradshaw Layfield,
That is.
clotheslined Frank Kazarian, and then when Ryan Nemeth went up to hug him, JBL punched him in the face, and then JBL just kind of left. And that allowed Joe Hendry to hit that modified choke slam. Best way to
Yeah,
describe
the
it, because
standing ovation.
yeah, the standing
Yeah.
ovation. It's a choke slam, but it's like a body slam.
Yeah, you pick them up by the neck and then slam them, kind of
Yeah,
like
I
a
like I like calling it the choke slam. I think that works.
a joke slam. But yeah, the great match. Two great opponents. Feels like somebody said wrestling is at its best when everything kind of coalesces together and the right decision get made. Just feels like that. We talked about it. People kind of get so hung up now because WWE does everything first in
Hmm.
people's minds. And so many comparisons to the they're doing a Cody thing with Hendry. I'm like, how many different ways it is to finish your story. And I feel like that's what they did with Hendry. And I didn't even know a lot of his backstory until they did those video packages on the last couple editions of Impact with him. Kind of starting out, uh, going back to the British scene and kind of breaking his bones so he could get ready for wrestling. And then that whole narrative about the only wrestling video he ever had saved was the Genesis match between Samoa Joe and Kurt Angle. And this is like 7 or 8 years to the day or something. It was the anniversary or whatever. So, yeah, it was just, it felt like the right time to pull the trigger. You realized its potential before I jumped on board. I think I came aboard the Joe Hendry train when he was fighting Moose, uh, and being a great digital media champion. And then, I think he kind of fell off for you with this whole NXT TNA thing.
Hmm.
And then, you said he needed to get more serious. You can maintain that Joe Hendry kind of insult style without, losing the serious portion. I think him taking those L's, kind of prepped him for. So this was good. Nick, was a great champion. I think for me as a big fan of Nemeth, this world title reign was like a spiritual successor to what we didn't get when he was world champion in WWE. So yeah, this was good, man. Great moment. Crowd fully behind him. Got his parents was there and got to celebrate in the crowd. This was a real, true, feel good moment.
I do like how you phrase that with Nick Nemeth essentially coming in and having the title run in TNA that he didn't have in NXT, or not in NXT, in SmackDown, or even was it just SmackDown? Or was that the only place he won the belt besides
Yeah, he took it
NXT?
off Del Rio on Raw. Yeah,
Right. He also took. He was also champion on.
SmackDown
Yeah,
with the Edge for like
with the whole Edge angle and Vicky gave him the belt.
yeah,
Yeah,
Vicky.
that was
Yeah,
awful. So that being said, I do agree with that. This was definitely the best world title run of his career, regardless. Hendry got a big win. It all worked so well, just
yeah,
so well.
yeah,
So that being said, I would give the Genesis show probably a strong B.
yeah.
I liked how
Yes,
it
sir.
ended. A lot of good matches. I don't think they had any booking issues. So I think all in all, it went good.
Yeah, man. Be strong. B plus for me. I'm the A minus because and that was a great venue they picked. Like it felt intimate, but it looked big, and I think a lot of that had to do with the camera working that well. But that was great. Um, it's great that they getting consistent sellouts, hot crowd. The busted open thing was cool. Uh, again, the most consistent thing I think that works for both of us when it comes to this partnership is the fact that Santino's daughter comes on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting seeing what they do. Like I said, this was a hell of a way to kick off the year. Great show. Glad Genesis is back. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing what they do with these live shows. But they got the rest of the year laid out great. So I'm it feels real good once again to be a TNA fan. Hopefully we don't get no news in the coming days or weeks where it's like, oh my God, they took 2 steps back. I know for you that's the partnership, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get what you
Yeah.
mean. All right. So with that, we're gonna wrap it up. Obviously, check us out next week. We will cover the live show. That'll be our primary topic for next week. Um, Website, realnerdcorp.com, REALNERDCRP.com. We're on Twitter at NERDCRP. Marcus, you can be found on Twitter at ParadoxKid, ParadoxKid.
That's me.
You can also find him on his other podcast, The True Penny Show. TRUEPENN. Wait, yeah, TRUEPENNYSHOW. That's The True Penny Show. You can find me on Twitter at Chad Nerdcorp, CHEDNERDCORP, and on the Instagram at Chad's Photo at CHDSPHOTOHUT. Be sure to check us out there as well. We will be back next Tuesday around 9 o'clock at twitch.tv/Wrestling Underground for another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. For Marcus Green, I'm Chad Porto. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for giving us a chance. Remember, as always, watch more wrestling. And Marcus, take us home.
Good night.